Today we're going to be talking about pH. And pH, it is normally written as a lowercase p and a capital H, and you've probably seen that before or maybe heard about it before. pH stands for potential of hydrogen, okay? And so it's really a measure of the concentration of hydrogen ions. And so we're talking about H+, because hydrogen as an ion is going to have a positive charge. It is going to be a cation. So how does this happen? Well, when water breaks down into ions, it's going to split into a hydrogen ion that has a positive charge and a hydroxide ion that is negative. So we're talking about H2O, okay? And we're going to split that into one hydrogen ion, and then that leaves us with one oxygen and one hydrogen, and that is a hydroxide. This reaction can go in both directions, and as water does this, it changes the pH of a solution. Okay, so again, pH is used a lot in chemistry and in biology, and it plays a really important role, especially within our cells, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. The pH scale itself runs from 0 to 14, okay? And so right there in the middle is 7. Anything that has a pH of 7 is considered to be neutral, okay? It is neither acidic nor basic. It is neutral. So pure water, pure distilled water, is going to have a pH of 7. That's what's going to be our most neutral. And then anything on either side of that, like I said, is either going to be a little acidic or a little basic. As you move away from neutral, as you move away from 7, you get, this is a scale, and it's kind of a continuum, right? So the further away you get from 7 on either end, the more acidic you're going to be. If you're getting down to the area towards 1, or if you're getting closer up there to 14. So water, as I mentioned, is neutral. Water is at 7. As you move down around 6, you're going to see milk, slightly acidic. Coffee is going to be somewhere around 5, and then you're going to get into your citric acids like you would find in a tomato. And then around 3, you're going to get into soda. Around 2 would be what you find in a lemon, the acid there. And then when you get down to 1, you're talking about like hydrochloric acid, which is what we find in our stomach. And down there at 0, really acidic would be like a battery, right? The acid that we find in a battery, which if you've ever had a broken battery and ever tasted any of that, it is extremely acidic to the point where it will burn your tongue, especially if it's like a larger battery, like a car battery or something like that. Moving back up the scale then, we're going to look at basic things. So just above water, around 8 is where we find blood. It's slightly basic. Moving up, further and further, you're going to get to things like soap, which is a pH of about 12, bleach, which is a pH of about 13, and then as a pH of 14 is sodium hydroxide, which is like things where you find like an oven cleaner and things like that. The thing about the pH scale is at either end, you're getting into some dangerous stuff. A pH of 1 or 2 is going to be very damaging, deadly to your body, and then a pH of 13, 14 is going to be very damaging or deadly to your body. So you want to stay away from those things. If you're using hydrochloric acid in a controlled environment, usually it's going to be diluted. It's going to be diluted with water. You don't want a really strong hydrochloric acid because it will burn your skin. It can burn your eyes. It can have some pretty nasty effects to it. So again, acids, anything less than 7, bases, anything higher than 7. So acids, why are they considered to be acids? Because they are going to be compounds that release hydrogen ions, H+, in a solution. They have a higher concentration of hydrogen ions than hydroxide. That's the way they behave. That's why we call them acids. And again, they're going to be anywhere between 0 and 7. The really strong ones are going to be between 1 and 3. Again, this is like hydrochloric acid in your stomach. Now, you say, well, why do we have such a strong acid in our stomach. Isn't that bad for us? Well, your stomach is lined with mucus that protects you from the hydrochloric acid. It's also one of the reasons why when we consume something that may be contaminated, a lot of times it's not a problem. So if we eat something and we swallow it and it goes down into our stomach and our stomach kills it with that hydrochloric acid, we don't really have to worry about if it's something that we, or a small child puts something in their mouth that they shouldn't. A lot of times that stomach acid will take care of whatever it is, so we don't have to worry about, getting sick from it or that sort of thing. At the other end of the spectrum, then we have bases. They are any compound that releases the hydroxide ions into solution. They have a higher concentration of hydroxide than they do the hydrogen ions. And again, they run from just above 7 all the way up to 14. The strong bases there are going to be in the 11 to 14 range. Strong bases are things like lye, which we find in soap, right? Lye soap can be very, very strong. If you use lye soap, you have to be careful not to leave it on your skin for too long because it will burn. And then also bleach, right? Bleach is a great cleaning agent, but because it's so basic, it has such a high pH, it's very, very dangerous. Like I said, it's great for cleaning, but you don't want to leave it on your skin for too long or really get it on your skin much at all. If you've ever seen bleach and what it can do to clothes, right? It can completely stain clothes just because of that chemical nature that it has. So we've got these things that are very acidic. We've got these things that are very basic, and we've got these that exist in our body. But we also have what are called buffers. Buffers allow us to have these acids and bases in our bodies without throwing everything out of balance, because pH is really important within our cells. Most enzymes, and remember, enzymes are proteins that break down things, that carry out all types of chemical reactions and help chemical reactions happen faster in our cells. Most enzymes have to work in a specific pH range. If they get out of that pH range, they will no longer function properly. So the way that can be regulated is through buffers, because most cells in our body have to stay somewhere between 6.5 and 7.5 pH. And that's not a very wide range, right? We're talking slightly acidic to slightly basic, right? We don't have a whole lot of wiggle room there. So in order to maintain that, the body is going to produce buffers. And what buffers do is basically when you introduce an acid or you introduce a base, it doesn't allow the pH to shift. The buffer helps keep it in balance. If the pH shifts too much, then that affects the enzyme's ability to have chemical reactions happening. And again, we always need chemical reactions to happen, right? If we don't have chemical reactions happening inside of our cells, then we're not going to get the products we need from those reactions, and that's going to spell disaster for us. So we use these buffers, and what buffers are is they're essentially weak acids or weak bases, and they can either release hydrogen ions or hydroxide ions based on the needs of the environment. And so by doing that, they help combat any sudden or sharp changes in pH, and this is going to help us maintain homeostasis. And as we know, homeostasis is important, right? That's the basis of what we do, is we have to maintain that balance within our bodies, within our internal environments. So one of the more common buffers is the carbonic acid bicarbonate buffer. During cellular respiration, we are going to produce carbon dioxide as a waste product, right? This is immediately converted to bicarbonate ion in the blood. On reaching the lungs, it is again converted and released as carbon dioxide. Again, this is a buffer which allows so that the change there isn't drastic, right? We convert it into this bicarbonate, it travels in the blood, and then it's converted back into carbon dioxide, and it gets released. That way we don't have a buildup of that carbon dioxide. So also, while we're in the blood, it's going to neutralize acids which are released due to other metabolic processes. So while it's traveling in the bloodstream as that bicarbonate, it's going to help neutralize acids, okay? In the stomach and duodenum, it also neutralizes gastric acids and stabilizes the intracellular pH of epithelial cells. And it's going to do this by secreting bicarbonate ions into that gastric mucosa, right? That mucus that surrounds it and protects it. So again, this is just one of the many buffers that we use inside of our body to ensure that that pH stays where it needs to, because again, if we get outside of that range, then our enzymes shut down, which shuts down our chemical reactions, which results in disaster for us. So pH is really important, and so are the buffers that help maintain that pH within our bodies. I'll see you next time.